matches. They've had 7 wins so far. This is the way the two teams will line up. And Hull have got Richard Horne playing at full-back. Then it's Mark Calderwood, Richard Whiting, Kirk Yeaman and Graham Horne, Danny Washbrook and Chris Thorman. The forwards, Ewan Dowes, Thomas Lee, Jamie Thackeray, Willie Manu, Dally Tickle and Lee Radford, who is the skipper and loose forward. And on the bench, it's Peter Cusack, Danny Houghton, Mike Burnett and Dominic Maloney. The coach is Richard Agar. Castleford, they've got the outstanding youngster Richard Owen playing at full-back. Then it's Michael Wainwright and Michael Shenton, James Evans and Kirk Dixon, Rangi Chase and Brent Sherwin. This is where there is a sort of strangeness about the Castleford lineup. There are 3 forwards there in the front row. Mitchell Sargent, Liam Higgins and Stuart Jones, not a hooker between them. Sione Faumuina and Brett Ferris in the second row, and Ryan McGoldrick, the captain today, completing the lineup at loose forward. And the subs are Chris Feather, Ryan Boyle, Kirk Netherton and James Ford. The coach is Terry Mattison, been doing a magnificent job down at the Jungle. And the Castleford Tigers supporters are here in numbers. They're enjoying their weekend, they're enjoying their day in the sunshine, and who knows, tonight they could be way up the table. Starting this match in 7th place, Hull stand between them and 2 points. As the teams emerge from the dressing rooms, let's go upstairs and join our commentators. Steve-O is there with Barry McDermott, Sean McRae. But first we hear from the man making his Super League debut in the commentary station on Sky Sports. It's Rod Studd.
Eddie, thank you. These two sides will be hoping that a change of scenery for the Magic weekend will bring a change of fortune. Neither team won a match at Millennium Magic in Cardiff. Hull lost 2 derbies narrowly to Hull KR, and Cass were walloped 54-16 by Wakefield this time last year, a day that Terry Mattson called the low point of last season. But if these two can serve up a match like they did when they met in the KC Stadium in March, this could be a real cracker. That night, a late Brent Sherwin drop goal earned the Tigers the win and ended Hull's 100% start to the season. Cass start them at 7th. They could go as high as 3rd if they win, as they chased a playoff appearance for the first time since 2002, and Hull can go back into the top 8 with a win.
It's going to be very difficult indeed for either side to make an impact, mainly due to the fact that Castleford, they've got the defence very strong indeed. They'll be looking towards their youngsters, the like of Richard Owen and of course Michael Shenton.
Danny Tickle gets us underway, and Castleford will have first use. A game that is tough to call. The bookmakers can't split the sides, and if you want further evidence of how close this will be, at the end of 11 rounds of matches, Castleford had made 14,870 metres, and Hull 14,868. What's 2 metres between friends?
It could be the difference between the two games, though. Whoever's going to take it. Hull Football Club, of course, they'll be happy with the fact that Richard Agar, the coach, he accepted the fact that Richard Horne wanted to play at full-back rather than in the standoff position. It certainly showed up well last week against Salford.
First time for 6 years that Richard Horne was at full-back, and already we've seen maybe a hint of a difference in styles between these two sides, Steve-O. Castleford will look to promote the ball a bit. Hull will adopt a more error-free, risk-free strategy, I think, as they have done all season.
I think you're pretty spot on in that department. They've got to understand that the kicking game on this ground is very, very lush. The ball does not skid, so give it good height, and if it bounces, it just settles down, but that's a poor kick.
That was Brent Sherwin's first kick of the game. We haven't seen a 40-20 kicked all weekend at the Magic weekend. And it's going to be very, very tough, I think, Steve, to see one this weekend with, as you say, the lush grass.
And I think another interesting aspect is the change in personnel with the Castleford side. They put Liam Higgins at prop, and I think what they're doing is saying that they need to contain Hull in the forwards. Sione Faumuina.
Easy for you to say, Barry.
Go on. Faumuina, I think he will take control of the ball playing in the middle of the park. Very talented player.
Be interesting to see how Tommy Lee handles. He's been in this position quite a few times, of course, but it's whether the forwards can lay the platform. Richard Horne, as I said last week against Salford, he was coming as a second phase, not receiving it first or second receiver out wide, but he was coming as a second man.
Tommy Lee kicks from dummy half, and a pretty risk-free opening set as far as Hull FC were concerned, and they forced Castleford back onto their own line, and Richard Owen, who turned 19 last week, runs it out of defence for the Tigers, and
There's a
appears
problem.
to have got a knock here as well early doors, and that isn't the start that Terry Mattison would have been looking for, with his fullback taking a knock very, very early proceedings. There's Terry, for
Richard
season as
Owen.
coach at Castleford. Sorry, Steve.
I don't think it was a tackle. I think he pulled up as he was so slow to get to that kick downfield. Whether it was just made worse by the impact of the tackle, but he was ever so slow.
They've taken him off the field, Steve, already. It wasn't just that tackle. There was a tackle earlier in the game where about on the halfway line, and he was down for quite a while. And he's in absolute agony. It looks like some sort of hip or possibly knee problem. And you saw there before when Hull FC kicked through, just watching this kick as it goes dead, but when Hull FC kicked through, Richard Owen just couldn't get to the ball, and he just had to sacrifice that tackle. He's left the field. That's a major blow for Castleford in the early exchange of this game.
Young James Ford has come off the bench, and Castleford, not only is it a blow switching their fullback up and mixing and matching early doors, it also means one of their 12 interchanges has disappeared inside the first 3 minutes. So work for them to do as Ewan Dowes takes it up for Hull FC.
Well, just show a poor kick from Brent Sherwin. He's such a major cog in this Castleford outfit. He will control things out there.
Manu, a magician with the ball, right at the top of the list of tackle busts in Super League with 50 alongside Gareth Hock of Wigan at the top, and that's gone loose. An early decision for Phil Bentham, and it's play on is the call from the referee as it went loose in the tackle.
No, that's just a good shot, Rod. Look at that, great read from Evans. Hits the player as he's catching the ball.
First real chance then for Castleford. Mitchell Sargent on the charge to within 30 metres of the Hull FC line. This is the first opportunity really for either side to get inside their opponent's red zone. Sherwin.
Well, we've seen in the previous games that the pack of forwards that really want it more take control down the middle. They've come away with a convincing win, and at this point in time, Castleford looking very strong indeed.
Chase at dummy half, appealing for a penalty, nothing forthcoming from Phil Bentham, and now Sherwin, who's had his hands on the football 3 times in this passage. McGoldrick, who likes to come into the line. Evans is wrapped up. Last tackle.
Good work by Graham Horn. He read it well. This should be a kick from Sherwin, surely.
Well, it's a pass this time. He's confused everybody. Brett Ferris with a one-handed Harlem Globetrotters pass. Still a chance for Castleford on this. And near side forward is on the pitch. A couple of minutes, gets it inside. And now Shenton. And Shenton this time kicks. It cannons off there the hand of Jamie Thackeray. And Thackeray, with a bit of juggling, gets hold of it and snuffs out the danger.
Well, they went for the power play in Castleford. It nearly came off. It was scrambling defence by Hull. Good work by Thackeray. Read it well.
Good start for Castleford then, apart from that injury to Richard Owen. Could be important. James Ford has dropped back to full-back. He's only played 3 games. Well, this is his 3rd game for Castleford. Should get some injury news in a second or two on Richard Owen, and we'll get confirmation of just exactly what the problem is in a moment or two. And again, it's the kick from dummy half from Tommy Lee, and it goes deep. It'll be easily picked up though by Michael Wainwright. It has forced him back to within a few metres of his try line.
A dummy half kick is one of the best plays in the game. It means that all the chasers are offside, and as long as the chasers can make the effort, it's an outstanding play that we don't use enough in our game.
Let's get news then of the injury to Richard Owen. It happened within a couple of minutes. Let's go down to the sideline. Ben Pro.
I can't throw too much light on at this stage, Rod, but he took a knee to the right hip. There you see him on the sidelines in some pain. The Castleford medical staff assessing his condition for the next 10 or 15 minutes is the word. They're going to see if he can return to the pitch, but at the moment it's 50-50.
Castleford in possession then with Sargent looking to move this ball down to this near side. Now half a chance of them getting inside to Shenton, and Ferris goes back the other way this time. Ford comes into the line. He's had a massive impact coming off the bench. James Ford already got his hands on the ball 3 or 4 times. He couldn't have expected to be in the action this early. Last tackle as Sherwin hoists it to the far side, and this could be the chance for the ball. Kurt Dixon couldn't quite get it away, and Evans has fumbled it over the try line. Well, Phil Bentham's he's going to call it a goal line dropout. An interesting one.
I think he's got it spot on. It was a great kick, wasn't it? They were pretty fortunate, Hull, there. Richard Whiting, in the previous play on the right-hand side, came out of the defensive line and was lucky to get back. Fair credit to him, eventually got there, but this will be more pressure.
Well, Kirk Dixon almost got it away to James Evans. He was rolling around like a child in a playpen there, Kirk Dixon, for a minute. Almost got it to Evans, but it was knocked behind. And it's the first goal line dropout of the game. Chris Thorman, we haven't seen too much of the whole scrum half so far, which is indicative of, well, the way they played the game and the way that Castleford have had most of the possession. And this kid Ford's had a real good start to the game, hasn't he?
Well, they haven't had any possession yet, Hull, so we're seeing them defend, and they're defending quite well. It's all been Castleford. Interesting to note that Rangi Chase has gone to play the hooking role. We looked at
lost the ball, sorry, Sean, but that is a big error from Higgins.
Yes, it is, Steve. It's a big turnover opportunity for Hull now to sort of get some relief, I suppose, there. But when we looked at the team sheet, it was pretty obvious that Liam Higgins, named at hooker, wasn't going to play there. So to me, it was either going to be someone like Rangi Chase or even Ryan McGoldrick, who's had some experience in that role before. But have clearly decided to put Ryan McGoldrick as a pivot-type role, and Rangi Chase has started the game at hooker, and he'll be very influential. He's very, very quick, very nippy, defends well in the middle of the ruck, and so far it's 0-0 on the scoreline, but it's definitely a points decision to Castleford if you talk about field position and possession.
And as you say that, Sean, right on cue, Hull have knocked on again under pressure from Ferris.
Ferris, ball and all on Thackeray.
Well, Higgins was involved as well, wasn't he, Steve? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he couldn't handle it at all. Bang, get into him.
Well, Jamie Thacker is one of half a dozen players out there playing against their old club today. And was at Castleford for 21 appearances. This is his second at spell of Hull, of course.
It's amazing. You know, Hull, to me, they look a little bit nervous. I don't know whether the occasion's getting to them or not, but that's not good defence.
No, it's not. And, well, that's a one-on-one steal off McGoldrick.
Good play by Chase.
Well, Ryan McGoldrick let it go, and it was ripped off him by Willie Marno.
That was the second time he tried to do it. He failed the first attempt. One of his teammates tried to tap. Here we go.
Mano, great stuff, wasn't it?
He's a magician when he's got the ball in hand, Willie Marno. Some of his offloads are unbelievable, but that was a superb sleight of hand, picking Ryan McGoldrick's pocket right on the first tackle, too, inside his own 30-metre line. It could turn out to be one of the most important interventions of the game.
Most important thing for Richard Agar, the Hull coach, is to make sure they try to get at least over the halfway line. They're pretty close to it now, so they can get a good kick and chase. They've got to get good field position, something they failed to do in the first 9.5 minutes.
That was Dowes driving it forward, and now the kick is deep from Chris Thorman up to the try line and beyond as Ford picks up possession. He's got Wainwright with him. And this is the kind of way that Hull got to the top of the table early on when they won their first 5 games, playing this error-free game and forcing the opposition back, hunting errors. They've made fewer errors than any other team in the competition, just 97 errors all season. And you can see from the kind of style they're playing how that's come about.
You're right, Rod. And also, let's not forget that the biggest problem, even though they were winning, they were letting tries in the final quarter. You can't afford to do that. It was a huge relief. They got a win last week.
Yeah, their stats were interesting. 5 wins off the reel, then 6 defeats, and then 1 defeat. Castleford have been 1-1, lost 1. Their last 5 games, 1 loss, 1 loss, 1. So due a defeat today on that sequence, but I'm sure Terry Matheson and his team have got other ideas. Now Sherwin. Well, that's got too much on it. That'll end up in the front row of the crowd. That, I'm not quite sure what he was aiming at there, Brent Sherwin, but that could be an expensive error.
Bitterly disappointed. Came off the side of the boot. And that's wasted about 35 metres downfield. The look says it all.
Yeah, it was way overstruck, wasn't it?
I think what happens sometimes with kickers is they see the fullback in position and realise they've got to hit the ball a little bit harder. I think Brent Sherwin was just going to try and place that kick, saw Richard Horne in excellent position and thought, oh, I don't want to just put it down his throat. So I think he went to put it over his head and he just mishit that.
Interesting, Sean. You know, you were here with Salford. Have they given you much time to get used to the field? And what did they give you, half a day or what?
We were able to come the day before, Steve-O, and have an inspection for about 20 minutes, and that's certainly enough. And what we found from that was that the grass is a bit long, field's in reasonable shape, grass a little bit long, very lush. We knew it would be a bit taxing on the legs after a period of time, so we also knew it would affect the kicking game because the ball tends to pull up. That's another error from Hull FC.
Yeah, it was one of those offloads from Willie Marno, but it wasn't collected this time. It was a brilliant ball had it been collected by Richard Horne, who felt he was being impeded. The whole fullback who came into the line, as we'd mentioned, he may well do. You actually coached him in the World Cup. He's on home ground here, isn't he, Sean? He's a Scot, isn't he, for the 2000 World Cup?
It's a shame that he was in the dressing rooms when the national anthem was played because he would have been singing that, I'm sure.
I'm not sure how many candles you burnt into the night trying to find some Scottish ancestry back in 2000, but obviously found some. Grandparents, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And he was only a boy then. I mean, it was 9 years ago. 9 years ago, 2000, a long, long time. He's had a great career, Richard Horne, hasn't he? He's only about 26 years of age.
He is indeed still 26 and having a testimonial at the age of 26 because he's played 10 years from the age of 16 onwards. An incredible career, and great to see him injury-free after those horrible injuries last season. That neck injury was really unpleasant. Here at Castleford, though, looking to get first points on the board, and we've already played 12 scoreless minutes here at Murrayfield, and game 5 of the Magic Weekend. Again a kick from Brent Sherwin, again looking to that far side for Kirk Dixon and co, and Dixon has managed to get hold of it, and this time Evans has knocked on.
Opportunity there. Dixon leaped higher, and James Evans is aware there was a golden chance for him to sneak through. Graham Horne, that's all he had to beat.
There's no doubt, is there, Steve-O, which side of the pitch that Castleford had identified they can expose with that high kick. Brent Sherwin, a fantastic kicker of the ball. I think he feels that Graham Horne, under the high bomb, would be suspect.
Is this a case, boys, of obviously Tom Briscoe was out on that left wing until he got injured? Graham Horne's not a winger by trade, is he? And they're obviously going to prey on that.
He isn't, no, but he's a fantastic player, Graham Horne. Give another one of the Horne brothers that has given good service.
And a forward pass. Mark Calderwood called back, and I'll tell you what, that wouldn't have been far off an even money chance of Calderwood to score there. He was 60 metres away from the try line, but Calderwood is still arguably the quickest winger in Super League, and once he'd got 2 or 3 metres on the rest of the Castleford defence, it wouldn't have been far off evens to score, I don't think.
Well, both of them looked okay. I thought the first one there from Tickle, and then from Richard Whiting it seemed okay.
I thought the Tickle one was a mile forward. Just have another look at it there. I think that's forward. I think both.
I think that's forward.
Yeah.
Well, Phil Bentham did, which is more important with what Barry, Steve-O and I think, and that's offloaded in the tackle to Wainwright now for Castleford as they look to play expansively again. So they won last week in a basketball score type event at Celtic Crusaders, but we've seen no points so far today.
Castleford getting over the advantage line with considerable ease. The forwards are taking control out there, and then Sherwin is going to take over with a kicking game.
Let's see what they can pick up from here. Chases at dummy half. He'll look, no doubt, for Sherwin. Sherwin's little grubber through, and Richard Horne is there to mop up, but it will be at the expense of a second goal line dropout.
Great rugby league from both sides. Richard Horne knew exactly where this was going. Good job too. Evans was there. Golden opportunity. We've seen throughout this Magic Weekend that the kicking game's so important.
Absolutely, Steve-O, and one of the points that you brought up before, Rod, was about the ground, and the in goals are about a 7 metre in goal, which is a fraction longer than some of the clubs are playing, and we haven't seen a lot of balls kicked dead here. You mentioned about the 40-20s, you haven't seen a lot of those, and I understand that because of probably the length of the grass, but also the ball hasn't been kicked dead, and it's been a huge advantage for a tactical kicker. There's been quite a number of dropouts to restart play.
Well, we've seen 2 already, both of them from Hull FC, and Castleford looking to take full advantage. And Sherwin's got through a huge hole from the Goldrick's pass, and the offload will create the first try, and it's the substitute. James Ford has got it. Castleford side through. McGoldrick, Sherwin, Ford with the try, and Castleford will shortly be 6-0 in front.
Super rugby league football. Substitute James Ford plunked it down. He lifted the arm in celebration before he did that. But the build-up was unbelievable. The pass to Sherwin, he came on the angle just at the right moment. Brilliant stuff. As soon as he got the offload, it wasn't the best. And then McGoldrick puts him straight through. Look at the gap there. That was very poor defence. You must move up in a straight line. They failed to do that. And their hole was absolutely massive that Sherwin went through. Come and get me, he said. That was very poor defence from Danny Tickle.
Dixon has added the extras, his 37th successful kick of Super League 14. Brent Sherwin's 9th assist of the season. He's right up in the top 5 of assists at the top of the Super League, and easy to see why. Mind you, once he'd been put through that hole by Ryan McGoldrick, a try was a certainty.
Just wanted to shout it, Richard, you take care, all right?
Danny Tickle will get us underway again as Hull look to get back into the game to stop the rot. It has been Castleford's first quarter of an hour or so. They deserve the lead, no question about that. The try from James Ford, who wouldn't have been on the pitch if it hadn't been for an early injury to Richard Owen. Funny how injuries can sometimes work in your favour.
Oh, it was a beautiful ball, wasn't it? And Sherwin, delightful when he went right the way through. But Richard Agar, the Hull coach, will be very disappointed with the way that Danny Tickle came out of that line.
Let's give James Ford a tremendous amount of credit. He's come onto the pitch, as you've mentioned. He's had 3, 4, 5 inputs, and what he's doing is just tracking in that middle channel, trying to pick up some scraps, and he was rewarded on that occasion.
Can't be easy, Baz, just not to be expected to come off the bench probably till the second half, say, be thrown in 3 minutes and suddenly start producing the goods.
It is, but professional players are aware that there might be an injury in the first second, it might be the last minute that you get on. You've got to be ready, willing and able whenever your team needs you.
Wait, Tom, wait. Ex-Featherstone and Sheffield player James Ford as Chase hammers this one long. It's over Richard Horne's head, and even in the long grass behind the post, it trickles dead, and Hull will get a 20-metre dropout. 20-metre restart, sorry.
And they won't be too upset about that either, because they know their defence has been solid. The forwards are taking charge out there. I mentioned before that Hull look a little bit nervous, and they're really lacking a bit of authority out on the middle of the park. They've got to sort themselves out.
Well, at 6-0 down, it's not too many dramas, but if they were to go 2 scores behind, we've mentioned their tactics are pretty much error-free, and that maybe not equipped to chase games quite as well as some other teams in the Super League competition. If they were to go 12-0 down, it could be a very long road back, especially if they keep making errors like that. Mark Calderwood picks it up.
I think what Hull are losing, they're losing the territory battle, they're losing the position the possession battle. They've already done over 60 tackles in the opening 18 minutes. They keep squandering possession, looking for that miracle offload as they have just done then. If it comes off it, great. If it doesn't, you're back to defending again.
Well, Richard Agar's approaching his first anniversary as the Hull coach, full-time. End of May it is, and his side have missed 5 tackles to Castleford's 0. It's interesting, actually, look at the list of the worst offenders in the missed tackle stats in Super League, and Hull have got 3 up in the top 10, or the worst 10 if you like, and I think Danny Tickle's top of it, so we saw that he getting exploited with a try.
Yeah, and also we've just seen that Richard Horne is, I mentioned earlier the fact that he's given himself more space by playing in the full-back position, but on that occasion you saw that he took first receiver, taking charge. Richard Agar knows he's got to have someone out there, first receiver, and sorting things out.
Yes, you're right, Steve. And look, one of the things that Barry's just spoken about is how many more tackles you've got to make sometimes, and Hull are up to somewhere nearly 70 tackles, whereas Castleford only had to make 41. And what that indicates as well is where you've had the football. There's an attempt at 40-20 by Brett Sherwin, but didn't quite get hold of it, did he? But the point I was going to make, Rod, is that Hull haven't yet had what we call a good ball set, but here's an opportunity now.
Horne, he runs straight into Sherwin. He had a man outside him, which was Richard Whiting. Back from an injury layoff himself, Richard Whiting, and scored a try in that Derby defeat by Hull KR, but Horne couldn't get the ball away. This is Ewan Dowes, and this is about as far forward as Hull FC have been as we reach the halfway point of the first half.
Good play by Brent Sherwin. He was not going to take the dummy from the fullback Richard Horne. Stood his ground.
Thorman throwing a couple of dummies. Mark Calderwood has cropped up in the left centre position over there, and that'll confuse a few. It's confused himself, I think.
Let's play on. That was knocked out and knocked backwards.
Well, Calderwood had drifted over there. Goodness knows what he was doing over there, but he was in the left centre position and, well, ended up with the handling error.
Well, I think he thought, well, if no one's going to give me the football, I'm going to go searching. And, you know, Mark Calderwood's one of those players, isn't he, that can bob up anywhere, and he scores tries, not just on the right wing, but he can score down the middle of the field and also on the left side. So he's clearly got a little bit frustrated with lack of possession.
You know, Martin Afire used to crop up in bizarre positions to score tries, despite starting off on the left wing, and Calderwood had gone hunting the ball over on that far side. Haven't seen too much of him, and he's only scored 4 tries this season since his move from Wigan. The top try scorer in Super League back in 2005 with Leeds, but haven't had so much success with Wigan and Hull since, and that's going to be a scrum down, forcing Hull right back inside their own 10-metre line.
He's bossing the show, isn't he? Brent Sherwin. Nothing dramatic. Just drives it down on that short blind side. He realises that they're coming up with the errors at Hull.
Hey, good discipline, lads. Yeah, I think they were a bit disappointed with him last season, Brent Sherwin, but this season he's made the difference. He missed the first couple of games, and he really has been a huge difference, Castleford, this season. Last season, the bottom of the pile. This season, looking for a playoff appearance for the first time since 2002. And at the moment, Steve, looking a good bet for that.
Yeah, and I also think that Brent Sherwin looks a lot fitter. I just got the impression he was carrying a couple of injuries last year. But it's amazing what the confidence can do. But I suppose in many ways Richard Agar will be thinking, well, we're only 6 points behind, and that's a penalty given away by Evans.
Do you know what, Steve? That's the first penalty of the match as well. It comes in the 22nd minute. It's been a feature of the Magic weekend over the last few years that there haven't been so many penalties. I don't know if the referees just wanting to let things blow, or maybe the players are in more cavalier mood, but that's the first penalty of the game from Phil Bentham.
It was a poor play by James Evans. He'd done all the hard work, stopped the man, then had a second dig. Cost his side 30 metres.
Yeah, see what else it cost them, because Hull, as we said, I don't think they've had the ball in hand inside the opposition's 20-metre area yet. And as I say, we've played 22 minutes of this game. They haven't been the highest scoring team in the competition by any stretch of the imagination, Hull. And you feel that it would have to be a low-scoring game for them to win it. Castleford could probably win a shootout, but at the moment we're not seeing that. It's 6-0 to Cass, the only score from James Ford.
It's important now that Hull, when they get in this good position, when it comes to the last, try to get a second set of 6 if they can, or at least apply the pressure, maybe a high bomb.
Ewan Dow's rocked by that meaty challenge from Ryan Boyle, but the ball's been moved on by Richard Horne to Chris Thorman, and Thorman within 12 metres of the try line. What can they put? Well, Phil Bentham's got a decision to make, and it's a penalty. Stuart Jones, the culprit.
You got to get out of the region, and he failed to do that. Dragged his left foot onto the football. More pressure. Well, this is the real first opportunity for the black and whites.
And this is what you would call a good ball set, isn't it, Sean? Anywhere in between the 30-metre and your try line.
Oh, Danny Tickle has fumbled it on the second tackle. It was a third set of 6 effectively, and that's a big error.
It's becoming a bit of a nightmare. The one thing about this short, flat ball, if it's anywhere out of the rib cage, you'll lose control of it.
Well, it's the hardest ball in the game to catch, and really what you're trying to do is you want a lot of business going on behind to keep people interested. They're trying to make decisions, get someone to perhaps push out instead of pushing forward. In that situation, they didn't. They all came forward and forced the error. And Hull will be very disappointed with that, because they had an opportunity to sit in this area and build some pressure. They may still get that. They may be able to force an error from Castleford.
We saw the handling error stats there, 6 already for Hull. I mentioned they're averaging under 9 a game this season, and at the rate they're going at in this match, they're going to get over 20. So it's their worst day really at the office in terms of mistakes of the season. And that's evidenced by the fact that they haven't had a sniff of the try line yet, with the exception of that knock-on by Danny Tickle. Wait. Castleford leads 6-0, and comfortable lead at this stage as well. McGoldrick, who helped set out that first try, just delayed the ball there. Ryan McGoldrick really is a maverick player. Wigan were reportedly after him in the close season, but he'd signed a 4-year contract with Cass as Sherwin kicks. And he's out on the full twice. Twice in this match he's overshot.
Well, you could see him raise the eyebrows and say, well, maybe it's a bit difficult because I've got the running track on this particular side. But the first error was on the other, on the right-hand side.
Hull bringing Danny Houghton off the bench, and Tommy Lee coming off, and Houghton, a very useful player to have coming off the bench, still only 20, one of the finds of last season. That's going to be a defence.
Absolutely outstanding defence by Ryan Boyle there, the Castleford number 17. There was an offload from Peter Cusack, and Ryan Boyle. There is a hand in, no doubt about that, but the pressure applied by him. He's a front rower, don't forget. Outstanding work.
There's an old saying, get into the faces and the mistakes will come.
Shenton for Castleford. There's 7-try leading scorer this season. And Wainwright coming in off the left wing to do a little bit of work. Well, a second try is here for the taking for Castleford. They've bossed this game, but have only got 6 points to show for it. McGoldrick, and wide it goes.
That was forward.
Well, Kirk Dixon would have done well to pick it up off his bootlaces anyway, forward, backwards or sideways. It was a pass that was almost impossible to handle.
But to be fair to Castleford, they are adventurous. They're trying to get the ball out wide as often as possible.
Again, Graham Horne on this left-hand side for Hull. I think they're having a look at him and maybe thinking they can run around him. Not a natural winger.
No, you're right, Barry. He does tend to come in. He does tend to wedge in and try to get on the centre. And some sides will defend that way. They'll actually leave the winger available, leave him open, and try to shut down the centre. But Graham doesn't always get that right. I think Castleford feel Graham doesn't always get that right, and he's obviously a target out there.
Played in the centre when the sides met in the KC Stadium, and Martin scored a hat-trick and ended up on the losing side, a game that Hull should have won and lost. 19-18 to that drop goal from Sherwin 3 minutes from the end, but Horn forced into an emergency role on the wing now.
That guy's an important player for Hull. Danny Washbrook, just coming back from injury, probably a month into his rehabbing, getting involved for the Hull FC side, but he's benefited from Mick Crocker not coming.
Thorman's spinning kick is comfortably collected by Thor, but Hull at least have forced Castleford back onto their own try line.
Great work by Kirk Yeaman there. Kicks on as good as a chase, and he was right down the fullback's throat. But Yeaman snapping at the heels. Wonderful stuff. And it's something like this that you've got to lift the game. Bang, straight into it. Because they need a lift to the black and whites, even though they've had a little bit of possession. They were starved of it early in this match.
I reckon they'd be pretty relieved to be only 6-0 behind, given the field position. Sherwin, who was just caught as he got the ball away, and there was a little bit of afters after the ball had gone. It's picked up by Richard Horn, who starts moving sideways before wrapped up by a welcoming committee of 3 or 4 Castleford Tigers. And that could be the only worry for Terry Mattison. This side haven't put clear water between themselves and Hull. Just one converted try between the teams. Houghton. And Dowes. Houghton again, who will give them impetus coming off the bench. Brings in Danny Tickle. Oh, Tickle with a brilliant offload, and Richard Horn was waiting for it. No one in support. Houghton's there again, though, at dummy half to get Hull moving forward again. Can they produce something from this? Really, their first attacking opportunity of the game. Thorman almost wrapped up, but squirms away. Burnett, who signed a new 2-year contract with the club yesterday. Whiting. Thorman now with a little kick through. It may well hang up in goal, and Ford deals with it.
Good play. We said the black and whites needed something. There's a kick through there from Thorman, but Ford got himself and tickled the offload.
A beautiful offload.
Just could not get that second phase. You could see how he's trying to spin.
A telling sign now, Castleford, when they actually surrendered that dropout, they threw the ball away, trying to buy an extra 20 seconds or so. They look a little bit tired, and this again is a good ball sent.
It doesn't look all that warm out there. The sun's disappeared behind a cloud or two, but it's the grass, isn't it, Sean? It's sapping. That's causing the problem, isn't it?
It is, and that won't appear on the screen. And the guys were, as I said, there's nothing wrong with the playing surface. It's actually in pretty good shape, and you can understand they've had to leave the grass a little bit long for having 7 games over 2 days. But it does take a fair bit out of you. We see Willie Manu there offload the ball, and Hull have got another opportunity here to perhaps either score or force another repeat set.
Yeah, Manu, a magician with the ball with the offload. Here it is again. Can offload from the most unlikely of circumstances, a bit like Danny Sculthorpe, really at Wakefield.
I think it's been a smart move by Richard Agar as well, bringing on Danny Houghton. Oh, they've gone close.
Just forced back, dragged back. So Kirk Yeaman it was. Washbrook's at dummy half this time. Marner with a simple ball, trying to bring Chris Thorman in. The attack's lost a bit of impetus, but Mark Calderwood, well, if he was 8 foot tall, he'd have scored there. And if he'd had a step ladder.
Not the best. The idea was there.
It was a chance, though, wasn't it? There was, yeah. He'd got space.
He realised that the winger was just struggling to get back. Calderwood was there first. Not many opportunities in this first half, but Thorman realised that the kick was on.
The pass to Thorman obviously hit the deck, and then I think whatever they'd set up for went by the wayside. Then Thorman had a look, saw that the Castleford line was quite far up, thought about that little dink forward, and unfortunately his skill didn't match his ambition.
Yeah, a great start to the season, Chris Thorman. He and Richard Horn were playing 7 and 6 at the start of the season. Thorman is now still at scrum half, obviously, with Horn dropping back to full back. But they started off like a house on fire, the pair of them, after his move from the Huddersfield Giants in the off-season. But maybe the form has just dipped in the last few weeks, coinciding with Hull's little dip in form as well.
Much better defence from Hull in the opening 15 minutes. They were bouncing off the ball carrier.
Chris Feather. He's been around the Yorkshire scene. He's played for virtually everyone in Yorkshire. Chris Feather and Leeds and Wakefield and Bradford. Here he is at Castleford. Rangi chase at dummy half and Sherwin. See if he can get this kick on target. A high hanging ball. Well, it could be a collision here. Oh, well, the two horns, it was almost an Abbott and Costello moment as they both went running towards the same ball. It could have been an absolute catastrophe for Hull, but in the end, someone got a shout and Richard Horne managed to collect it.
Just at the final moment as well. It isn't as though they don't know each other, is it?
No, you'd have thought they'd have played a bit together over the years.
Mrs. Horne, Mother Horne might have said, watch out, you two.
It's offloaded in the tackle. It's picked up by Danny Tickle. Richard Whiting trying to make a yard or two, but once again he's all wrapped up. They've found it very, very hard to make any kind of yards at all out there, Hull, this afternoon.
And full credit to the Castleford coach, Terry Matheson. You know, he has worked in the off-season on this defensive pattern.
Manu offloads again, gets it inside. Just feel that if they can get the ball in Manu's hands, he can produce anything. Play on, says Phil Bentham. It looked a mile forward. Graham Horne, Chris Norman, that's knocked on.
Oh, good work from Boyle there. Oh, that looked high.
Shot, yeah.
Says it's okay. Thorman had the opportunity.
I think that's justice, that. I think the one before that was slightly forward. I think it was Manu that passed it. The referee missed it, but again, yeah, Boyle having a good game.
Hold. Yeah, the ball to Graham Horne looked forward, but it became academic when Chris Thorman couldn't handle the ball inside.
Well, this is what we thought was a forward one.
I think we were right, Stephen.
Yep.
Eamon, it's the one after that.
Either way, not picked up by the referee, Phil Bentham.
Well, Hull were top of the table, outside the top 8. They can go back into the 8 if they win here today, but at the moment, struggling to score a point, never mind win the game. Last tackle, Brent Sherwin. Again, he'll go to that far side. This time he's hooked it horribly, really. Unless there's a miracle bounce, it'll go behind. Still aiming for that far side, still aiming for Kirk Dixon.
He just hasn't got it right, has he? Keeps shaking his head. He knows that he's not on song at the moment. Looks to be a problem for Castleford. Second rower, Brett Ferris.
Come on, Mitch.
He's having treatment in back play.
Play continues, though, and Hull, who have crept back into it in the last few minutes without really threatening too much, but have had a little bit more of the ball. It's probably coincided with the introduction of Danny Houghton.
And it's a good run from dummy half. He's just asking the same questions, isn't he, about the first and second markers. Something that they failed to do in the opening 20.
Wait, Mitch. Go. Here he is again, always probing. Final tackle. 6 minutes to go before half-time. Hull 0, Castleford 6.
The sun's out, it should be a high one.
Richard Horne, Chris Thorman, not a lot of time. A hurried kick. Oh, well, James Ford really should have dealt with it. Well, he will deal with it in the end, because I'll tell you what, the whole players all thought that is the simplest catch in the world and never bothered chasing it. Never bothered chasing it.
I think James Ford thought it was the simplest catch too, but it just shows you sometimes, you know, you can just relax. The wind can get hold of something, and just shows you errors can be made. But James Ford did very well. He got out of that very well indeed.
How close was he to it? Oh, yes, he's out.
He's gone.
It was not picked up by the touch judge. Definitely hit the whitewash. Lucky to get away with that. That should have been a dropout.
Hold, go. Should have been a dropout and could have been a big decision. Millimetres in it. Like most sports, it's a game of inches. He was over the line by an inch. And what a difference an inch makes. The clearance is long. It's picked up by Richard Horne, who's been pretty solid at fullback, hasn't made a mistake. As I said, he played his first game at fullback at the Willows last weekend for 6 years, but he doesn't look out of place there by any stretch of the imagination.
There's the confirmation. That is definitely on the whitewash. Well, things like that can just turn a game.
His little piggy was just over the line. Didn't go to market.
Understandable how they missed it, though, Steve-O, wasn't it? I mean, we've slowed it right down and freeze-framed it. When you
don't we have touch judges on that back line there? Officials?
No, not on
the TV
game. Well, that's a forward pass, surely. Well, play on is the call from Phil Bentham, so they've got a little bit of luck back. Can they make something of it here, Hull?
Good tactics, though, by Richard Agard. He's put up Willie Manu out there on the left-hand side. Earlier on, he was working down the middle.
They managed to get it away again of Hull. Last tackle. Let's see what they can produce here. Houghton and Thorman and...
Surely to Wainwright's wing.
Well, Richard Horne was involved in the tackle, obviously, so he's out of the play. One of the playmakers, Danny Washbrook, has a punted it towards Calderwood. And Whiting bats it onto Calderwood. Has he got support inside? It's a try. I'm sure it's a try. It may well go to the screen. Mike Burnett has claimed it. Well, he's given it Phil Bentham. Mike Burnett celebrates signing a new contract at Hull FC by squirming over the try line after some basketball from Whiting and Calderwood. And Hull are back in the game.
Well, we call the man, kick over to the left-hand side, Michael Wainwright. But it was good play, good build-up by the black and whites. As I say, Willie Manu out wide on the left-hand side, but he was a mile forward. You can see that Kirk Yeaman had to reach in front of his body, take nothing away from the kick. It was a super one. And Michael Wainwright in all sorts of trouble there, flicked back on the inside. The only thought was perhaps a forward pass, which they can't go for. And you could see that Michael Wainwright did not even try to get off the ground to stop that. That's try time, and Mike Burnett could have squared this game up. Was it a knock-on? Not according to the officials.
Well, important kick here for Danny Tickle from Mike Burnett's try. That game at the KC Stadium, Hull scored 4 tries to 3 against Castleford. Tickle hit the post, who won the conversions, which, had it gone over, they'd have won that game. And this is a pretty tricky one for Danny Tickle. As a left-footed kicker, it gives him a little bit of an advantage, but it's just about the most difficult kick he could have out there on the paddock. It will tie the game for Hull just before half-time if Tickle can nail this from the touchline. Castleford will feel they should be in front in this game, but, well, one slip. And Calderwood and Whiting managed to put Burnett in at the corner. Tickle, who was the competition's leading point scorer early on in the piece, has been overtaken by a few now. Chris Hicks out front in that particular race as Tickle strikes it smoothly and sweetly and puts Hull back on level terms.
Great conversion there from Tickle, but what about the kick as well? It was superb. In this defensive days, you've got to make sure that you take your chance. But was that a knock-on? No, according to the official. And Michael Wainwright was caught out.
What we found out is that Michael Wainwright may be a target now for people like Richard Whiting and Mark Calder. We spoke about Graham Horne perhaps with Kirk Dixon over on the other side of the field. But perhaps Hull FC have also identified the fact that, you know, Michael Wainwright's not overly tall. Richard Whiting, Mark Calderwood are, and Richard Whiting certainly gets off the ground, and we saw that his ability there just to tap the ball back to Mark Calderwood, who was very much focused and able to tip the ball into Mike Burnett, and it was a very well-worked try. Certainly came off a forward pass, there's no doubt about that, but you make your own luck, don't you?
Well, you know all about that, Sean.
There's no further comment, Steve.
Sean's team have plenty of luck, Steve. All of it's bad. We've got a minute to go in the first half here. 6 apiece. Thorman, well, content to just probe and prod that forward. Well, try and force another error from James Ford. He got away with one when he stepped on the back line a moment or two ago. He's got away with that, but to be fair, he's played well coming in at full-back here and scored the opening try of the game.
Been a slow start by the black and whites, but they really have upped the tempo. As I say, Richard Agar has done himself a huge amount of favour by bringing on Danny Houghton, and also the skill factor of Willie Manu out wide. Well,
Castleford get their first penalty of the game, and it comes in the 40th minute.
Well, it was well milked, wasn't it? But Tickle, you can't go over the top of the man. You've got to move away to the side.
It won't cost Hull too much, you wouldn't have thought, because we're inside the final 15 seconds. It'll take a miracle play here from just inside their own half. Maybe Sherwin can produce it, or Ryan McGoldrick. They're looking to move it, that's for sure. Oh, welcome to the afternoon.
Fantastic from Kirk Yeaman.
It's gone loose. Kirk Yeaman with the big hit. The final action of the first half is Kirk Yeaman picking his man up, Sione Faramino, and buffeting him to the ground. A try apiece in the first half then. James Ford for Castleford, Mike Burnett for Hull FC.